I need to pull up the preamble. But we just need to insert public comment in our agenda. I guess we could consider that an unanticipated item. I mean, we
I
usually
think
have
you can
public
also
comment
just
at the end.
accept public comment out of your own choice anytime.
Okay, well, I'll plan to slot it in after E, since I think that's usually when we have public comment is toward the
Mhm.
end of what's been presented, as opposed to just popping it in throughout.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone have patience with me while I pull up the preamble here. Do. I think we're good. How's everybody doing?
Just fine, thank you.
I mean, I need to make my gallery a little bit smaller before I officially start everything and put that on top. Okay, I think maybe I'm good to go now. Anybody feel free to correct me anytime. So it's 7:06. It is April 7th, 2025, and we are calling to order this meeting of the Amherst Historical Commission. In accordance with Massachusetts laws, this public meeting of the Town of Amherst Historical Commission is being conducted via remote participation. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so via Zoom or telephone. A hyperlink to the hearing has been posted on the town's online calendar. Which reminds me, I think Walker, was there legislative permission given between our last meeting and this one to continue to meet remotely?
Yep, they've extended it until June 2027.
Okay, all right. I shouldn't have to worry about it then. Okay. Let me just pull up our agenda. So actually I'm gonna do a roll call vote for attendance. Hetty Startup,
Present.
Madeline Helmer,
Present.
Pat Off,
Present.
and Antonia Brillenberg gave us notice earlier today that she wasn't going to be able to be at the meeting. So unless she's here and says so, we mark Antonia absent. I, Robin Fordeman, present, and that gives us a quorum of 4. So with that, our first agenda item is approval of the meetings of March 3rd, 2025. Do we have any discussion about the minutes prior to a motion to approve them?
Nope.
Okay.
Nice to have minutes.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 3rd, 2025. You can just say so
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, Hattie, so moved. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, Pat seconds. Roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes of March 3rd, 2025. Pat Oth,
Yes.
Madeline Helmer,
Yes.
Hetty Startup,
Yes.
and Robin Fordham. Yes, so the minutes are approved 4-0. That concludes that agenda item. Next we have announcements. I don't think I have any announcements. Walker, anything on your end?
Nope, I don't think I have anything.
So our next agenda item, since there are no, anyone else have any other announcements? Okay.
No.
is the Section 106 Memorandum of Agreement signatory of the Jones Library. The Jones Library is something I need to recuse myself from, so at this point, I'd ask Vice Chair Madeline Helmer to take over, and I will mute my screen and my microphone and rejoin you when the discussion is complete. Are you okay with that, Madeline?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so we received the MOA, the MOA Memorandum of Agreement for the Jones Library was signed by all of the parties, and they asked, but will by the town. Who is it signed by? Let me see.
Signed by the town and by MHC.
By the town and MHC.
Now they're
and the-
asking the consulting parties to sign.
Yeah, well, they're saying if consulting parties agree and decide they would like to sign, then they can, but they also can choose not to. It doesn't have any bearing on the actual, I think,
Yeah,
it's still going to go through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreement's still in force regardless.
right. It's just for record. Yes,
Mhm.
Hetty?
There's a point of order here. I don't think we have a quorum anymore.
Is this does,
4 should be a quorum, right?
well, Robin had to recuse herself, but
But you've still got 4, Pat. Oh yeah, because
you're not,
self.
Yeah.
does it, gosh, okay. Well, should we just at least
Well, you-
discuss this or?
Yeah, you can discuss it, but I guess you'll have to wait to make a vote on it until Antonia can join.
Whether we would
You
want to
would-
sign it or not.
Yeah.
So that decision is pending, but we can discuss. I mean, I think it'd be nice to discuss because we didn't have the opportunity to meet last month in time to make any recommendations for revisions to the MOA. So we did not make revisions. We did not make any suggested revisions to the MOA because Hetty and I thought it was really, important that we discuss it as a commission first before we put any edits forward. So
So I
Pat.
have my hand up, Madeline. It's my understanding that the MOA was developed based on the minutes of the Historical Commission. And so we can't add anything to it that we didn't already vote on or discuss to vote on. And so I think that we're mentioned many times in the MOA. And I think it would be remiss of us not to sign it because they are using the minutes of our meetings. There is nothing contrary to our minutes. And
I think we don't have minutes for all the meetings, and so they had to kind
They
of
reference
just
the recordings, I
the
believe.
recordings.
well, that is the recording of the minutes. But it's my understanding that we're represented by our votes. And so there's nothing, unless it's something we vote on, which is after the point, there's nothing we can add now, except if members want to do a personal comment.
Yeah,
And
can
I
I just
think that's
clarify what
correct.
I said earlier is I just wanted to, this is just what I said in our last meeting, is that because we're mentioned so many times in the MOA that I just wanted to clarify, to have Walker help us fact check to make sure each of those lines are in fact accurate.
And
And
that's fair enough, Madeline, but I think we're at the point where they took our own recordings, if not written minutes, and our recommendations that we voted on into consideration when they wrote the MOA. And so I think the only thing for us to do now is a historical commission, because we are a commission of note related to this. Is Madeline, you would be the person to sign it. There's no comment required from us. But if you're more comfortable with Walker fact checking it, I'm comfortable with that too. But I think we're beyond the point of comment unless it's a personal citizen comment.
I will say that I did go through and do some fact checking, and as far as the statements that they made, there was one small edit that Madeline had suggested, but other than that, they did seem factually correct. I think what was missing from the statements that they made was discussions that were had in later meetings, but they did include all of the votes.
Yeah, and so for us to go on record as acknowledging that would be my position. I know we're not going to take a vote tonight because we don't have a quorum, but that is my understanding, Walker, also that it's accurate and represents our vote, and we are the standing commission related to the historical perspective. And so for us not to sign it would be an omission of our duty.
Oh my goodness. I'm not going to sit on this commission and hear my intentions and thoughts about the MOA characterized like this. It's not how I feel about the MOA at all. And being part of the consulting party that participated in the Section 106 process, I still feel like there are some outstanding issues that are being elided in order to kind of push this through. And I don't have any control over that. And we're not going to take a vote tonight, as you said, Pat. So I think for just right now, it's really unclear to me as a member of the commission in charge of historic preservation in Amherst, that if I was to be able to operate under the MOA as a commission member, I would be being asked to weigh in on things that are contrary to some of the standards of the Section 106 process, and contrary to some of the things that I've said as a consulting party member with Madeline. So, you know, I just think there are lots of pitfalls with this process at this point. And yes, I am part of a historical commission, and I uphold my responsibilities in relation to the town's historic properties, and the library is one of those. So I think for right now, that's all I need to say, because we're not going to take a vote.
Hetty, there's nothing more we can say because we're on record through our minutes and recordings of our votes. Now, I know you abstained and you voted against the final version, but
Yes, as a member of the commission, not as a private citizen.
no, but you were outvoted. And so
Yes, I was, and
Yeah.
I probably could be, you know, once we get to vote on whether we sign this or not. But the whatever is recorded in the minutes is one thing, and whatever was said in terms of the consulting parties process is another. They're sort of parallel ways of participating, if you could think about them like that. And I think what concerns me is that the MOA is signed. It's already a done deal, as you say. I'm not trying to rewrite anything or contest anything. I'm just trying to find my way with integrity once we have a contract that's signed and we have parts of the paneling in the historic building coming out and ending up with some kind of person who wants to put them in some other building. when they were purpose-built for the Jones 1928 building, and the MOA currently has it that the AHC is going to have a role to play in that process. And it's like speaking out of two different sides of my head. You know, on the one hand, I've got to participate in the MOA and its process. And in the other hand, I've got to try and uphold what I think are my concerns, my responsibilities as someone in town who's representing the historic preservation resources of the town. So I see those two things as really in contradiction right now. And I'll figure it out, I guess. And we don't have to say anything more about it, because as is clear, we have 3 people talking about this, which in itself is absolutely outrageous. That we've
yeah.
been left with so few people to adjudicate and help us through this process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the MOA seems it's sort of a circuitous logic that they would refer to AHC so heavily, whereas Amherst Historical Commission, it wasn't our. There's also the MHC sort of their statements that are also part of this assessment, that should be part of this assessment, and are omitted from mention in the MOA. And as a historical commission, we greatly respect MHC's findings, and it's difficult to see that they're just being omitted in this agreement and in this statement. And so
Well,
it's sort of a way to pick and choose what you want to
signed
craft
off
an
on
argument.
Madeline. Sorry, the MHC has signed off on the MOA.
Well, yes, but then
there is a path forward, and Pat's absolutely right. You know, this is all sort of water under the bridge at this point. What concerns me is how many references there are to the Amherst Historical Commission currently in the MOA, as if we have some kind of role to play. And what that role is really unclear to me, except to paper over the cracks of things that have been left dangling, to do with the interior woodwork, to do with the view shed from Amity, from North Prospect, of the property as a whole, and its impact on the surrounding buildings and properties. And you know, I just think the scale and massing issue is still kind of left hanging. So you know, that maybe it won't make any difference in the end, and this will all be moot.
Well, the only option we have, as I see it, is to accept the MOA. It's been, the Mass Historical Commission has signed off on it. The town manager has signed off on it. The trustees of the library have signed off on it. And many others who were considered consulting parties. But the issues you mentioned, Hetty, never came to a vote in the Amherst Historical Commission. And therein lies the issue.
Right. And if the Amherst Historical Commission, if we do not sign it, I mean, what does,
Makes
you
no
just think that would
difference.
be a failure of our duties?
I don't think it makes any difference whether we sign it or not. Does
I
it?
just have to say, I would feel, um, I haven't thought of this through fully, and so there's no quorum. We're not going to vote on it, so I can think about this more. But um, I would feel a little odd signing it, having not been part of the vote that approved the library. So
Madeline, you were part of the vote that approved the revised architecture.
the value engineering, those,
The value engineering
the
and
limited, yes,
right,
but
and you chaired those meetings.
yes, for the value engineering, and I limited
Okay.
it to the value engineering.
But that was the final vote to approve the plan. And so you weren't there for the initial votes because you were on maternity leave, but you chaired the meetings for the value engineering that we as a commission approved as
Right, and
presented to
I
us.
determined I did vote in to affirm those because I didn't see um, any issue with the value engineering in terms of the historic structure, and I limited my perspective to that because that was what was on the board there, and I was told not
Well,
to evaluate anything else. And as chair in that meeting, I certainly made sure that I stuck to the to the agenda.
the value engineering was the final plan. And we approved that. And so I think it's like a rock and a hard place. And I understand and respect what Hetty's saying, but I honestly believe that we approved the final plan and you were chairing those meetings. And so for us not to sign off on the MOA would be a remission of our responsibility, because what the MOA presented was things that we did talk about: the window replacements, the preference for slate roof, etc.
That's all.
And
And
yeah,
the landscaping.
yeah, and the landscaping. But by agreeing to the final engineering, we voted to agree. It was the project at that point. And so I'm not being contentious. I'm a realist and a pragmatist. I'm trying to be objective. And so if you take away everybody's feelings, we did approve the value engineering as the final project.
Hetty, did you
So
have anything more to say?
No, I'm all done.
yeah, and I'm finished too, but I think that the facts of our votes speak to our role with the final plan, which was the value engineering. And we, it's done. So I think for us not to sign the MOA would be remiss, because we didn't discuss any of the things that Hetty's brought up. I respect that, Hetty, that what you're saying, but we did not vote on those things. And you might have very strong feelings and ideas about those things, but that didn't come before the commission. And so, it's a rock and a hard place.
You want to take public comment, Madeline? There's one person.
Yes, we can take public comment.
Okay, let me invite them to speak. So Maria, I'm gonna unmute you so you can make a comment.
Thank you. I just went to a different room, so it's quiet. My name is Maria Kopicki and I live in South Amherst. Madeline, I think you were hitting the nail on the head. This has been this entire project, and especially how the AHC has been misinformed and not informed. It's been a series of sins of omission. You should have been talking about a lot of stuff before you took your votes, but you didn't have the information and you were told you can't talk about that. So that that's a real problem. Signing or not signing an MOA has everything to do with the MOA, with the Section 106 process. It's not whether you had minutes from your previous meetings. Were they accurate? What did the whereases say? It's fundamentally about, does this MOA provide protection to our historic building? And it doesn't. It doesn't do that. So your decision about whether or not to sign the MOA is not about minutes. It's not about decisions you made back when they were withholding information from you, from the town council, from the town itself. It's about, what does this call for? And what does it protect? And it doesn't protect this building. So I think this is, as Hetty brought up, I think this is about integrity. What's the integrity of this commission and what you're supposed to be doing? So I hope you don't sign it. It doesn't matter if you sign it, if there's literally no effect. So I think if you can't sign this comfortably with a sense of integrity, like, I believe that historic preservation was well served, then don't sign it. You're not stopping anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I think that also brings up the fact that this MOA considers the impacts to the adjacent neighborhoods, the context of the library, which is not something that we were able to evaluate in our hearing, because our hearing only pertains to the actual boundaries of the building. And it wasn't within our purview at that time to evaluate the impacts to historic districts, historic neighborhoods, view sheds. But the MOA itself is pertaining to that. And MHC's findings, but yes. Anyways, any more comments? Hetty or Pat?
No, let's
Okay.
just put it on the agenda for the May meeting.
Okay, we'll talk about this again in May.
And we have two demo delays at that meeting, Walker, as well?
Yes.
It'll be a big meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So I think we can bring Robin back, right? We'll move on to the next agenda item.
I'm back.
Hey,
Somehow I made
disappeared.
it. That time I got to lose the agenda. Hold on. Okay, thanks for everyone's patience. Next agenda item is approve postcards for the barn preservation applications and discuss next steps, barn tours, lecture by contractor, ?
Yeah, so the postcard I sent out through email and it sounded like in general, everybody was satisfied with it. So I guess unless you have any comments now, I'm trying to get a quote now for getting them printed. But I do still need the QR code added. Other than that, I think it's set unless anybody else has any comments right now.
Yeah, I can easily make like little tweaks if anybody sees anything. It's not a big deal. but you can,
Exciting that this is going to
That's
happen.
exciting.
And I
That's
have a
great.
list of property owners from the list that PVCP made, and I've added a few that Jan and I tracked down also that weren't on that list.
Great.
So I don't think it's all the barns in town, but it's a decent collection. I think it's 60 some property owners. So that'll start getting the word out at least. We're also gonna do, I'll get our communications director to do a press release and social media postings and whatnot, so that people are aware of the program. I do have the website up now, the webpage up now. If you want to go take a look, it's on the left as like a subpage.
Do you want to pull it up and share it, Walker?
Sure. All right, can you see that?
yep.
So. Historic barn preservation, I put the text in that I had. I think that Jan provided this, and then. We've got the step-by-step procedure, and. I thought I had the. Oh, yeah, that's what I don't have up yet, is the actual application. I need a link. To the actual application, which is an online link.
Beautiful. Can you scroll to the book section a second?
Mhm.
Okay, yep. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and if any of you have any additional resources you want me to add, happy to do so.
I was gonna suggest John Porter was somebody I worked with when I was a graduate student a few years ago, doing a barn assessment survey, or not assessment, a barn survey in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Hattie was kind enough to accompany me on a couple of my reconnaissance trips. And provided he's doing well, I know I did ask him back then if he was available to travel to give talks, and he just asks, I think he said reimbursement of mileage and good weather.
Okay.
So I can make another inquiry to him. He was
Yeah.
really great. He can date a barn by looking at it and talk about the way the different construction methods have changed, and that would be a possibility.
Yeah, that's one of the questions, is what, do you want to do some events related to this, or talks, or any sort of other thing other than just the applications? Oh yeah, here's where I need to put the link. So as soon as I have the final postcard, I'll get those printed and get them sent out and sort of launch the program, and then we can continue to talk about what other things you might want to do.
Should we say agricultural outbuildings? Or is it just,
Not, I mean, the program was intended for outbuildings like carriage houses and early garages as well, so.
okay, got it, fine.
And that's just personal.
Oh, I have to change.
Yeah.
You love, gotta love garages.
Yeah, my love of garages is squeezed in there.
I love it. I'm gonna change the postcard then.
Okay.
Just not have agricultural.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, because it's early automobile history as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I assume that we'll return that item to the agenda for our next meeting.
Yeah, I'll probably get the postcards out before then, but we can continue to have it as a recurring topic if we want until, because I assume presumably you'll get some applications as well, and then you'll have to review those and
Right, right, definitely. Okay, great.
whether they're gonna be approved or not, so.
Other comments on that agenda item?
All set.
Next up is update on tasks from Historic Preservation Plan. If anybody has any updates, feel free to provide them.
I did send around the lists that you had given me, Robin, of
Yeah.
tasks people had volunteered. I took a look at the lists and the preservation plan and didn't see a complete one-to-one match, so I wasn't sure how to assess that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the preservation plan was in the works before I started, and then I sort of took the initiative to do a little survey of our members at the time. But the membership has changed pretty significantly. I think like the larger question for those of us who are present is, and you know, I'll speak for myself, speaking realistically. I feel tremendously challenged to find time and focus to move something forward as much as it's what I love. And you know, I don't know how, you know, as an organization, I mean, there's 4 of us here right now. Antonio will be leaving after May. Hetty's been on the commission for a while. I think that's maybe a question. You know, we can talk about goals, but how can we figure out what's realistic to achieve? And, you know, I mean, I know from the barn, I mean, I can tell you from the experience of the barn discussion, or the barn program that, Jan was incredibly interested in it. I worked, because I happened to be aligning this project that I was working on at UVM. While I was on the commission at that time, and I was in grad school and I was working part-time. I had some time and space, and I really did dedicate a lot of effort to, I mean, I wrote the CPA proposal. I sat on the commission, I pushed it through, it took a lot of work, and then I kind of burned out. So, you know, that's the realistic thing, is that it really takes a lot of time and focus to move any of these agenda items forward. I'm delighted that Madeline has really pushed forward the modern building survey, that we've got that through. But I think, you know, maybe instead of a list of goals, like we should just focus on one at a time.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, I'm as guilty as anyone. I mean, it is at least nice to see this barn thing and, you know, remember like how hard I worked on it, and that I did, you know, when I had the time, I could really make something happen. But that's a challenge. I don't know if other people want to speak to that as well.
I think one option would be to choose 1 or 2 priorities and have me do kind of the drudge work and bring it back to you for approval of steps and like which direction you want it to go, because at least I'm getting paid to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you trying to squeeze it in.
That's
Are you
true.
talking about a certain task, Robin, or
Well,
right
I mean,
now?
you know, we had talked about all sorts of things, like somebody, you know, if we could, for example, you know, pull somebody from, I have no idea what's going on at UMass, but you know, a student who wanted to just report demolished buildings in Macris to MHC. Like, that's something that's totally doable. It just needs one person to focus on. It's not a hard project. It's a necessary part of updating our inventory. We've lost a lot of buildings in my tenure here. But the question is, what's the most important thing for us to focus on?
Well, for the modern architecture survey, I think just to like, I think we need to put together our list, find a draft a RFP, find a consultant,
And I think,
and then get the consultant on board to do the survey.
yeah, I mean, I mean, we've got a
So
preliminary list. I mean, I was heralding the fact that I feel like that's pretty much done. Like, it's kind of in the town's hands
well,
now.
we still need to like, I think I need to finalize the list, basically
Okay.
drive around Amherst and.
Okay. But it's still, I mean, it's still a preliminary list. I mean, and
Yeah.
working on the other side of it at MHC now and seeing towns go through surveys, like, you know, the expectation for the preliminary list is that it's preliminary, that, you know, and then it becomes the consultant's work to drive around. And, you know, like they want, you know, about 80% of what you realistically want to achieve. I mean, is my kind of sense. So, I mean, we may have to, you know, do a little fine tuning, but I think we've done a pretty good
Okay.
job, right? I mean, it's only what do we have, $15,000. It's not a ton of money, and that's not that many properties.
Yeah. I mean, it's more cost effective if you actually like identify the buildings ahead of
Oh,
time and
yeah,
just
but I
like so
mean,
they know. But
well, we've done that already, haven't we?
I
So
feel like I want to
two more
hold on to it a little bit longer.
for you.
Just
Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, I think
Hetty and I need to
I
meet
feel
up.
like that one is like really, we've done a good
Okay.
job.
All
It's
right.
like, you know, we've really like created a form, like that's, you know, the same thing with the barn thing. It's sort of
Great.
like what's the next thing
What
that we,
else is on our like priority list? Do you know?
Walker,
Do you
do
have that?
you have off the top of your head what, you know, the preservation, or maybe we could, you know.
I don't, but what about if we put this back on the agenda and I come back with a list of some of the things that were listed as a high priority and seem like they might be a doable task?
Okay,
Sounds good.
good.
I think I seem to remember I put my hand up to organizing something around preservation awards, and I think we could scratch that.
So for 1 year goals, was that high priority stuff? We
Or
had,
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of like something that we could realistically tackle, you know, in
that
the,
was, I have the list. I mean, I could tell you, but
okay,
yeah, and there's a slightly different list in the plan, but I'm sure, you
right.
know, either one would be important to do, so.
It would be good if we could align the goals, the 5 and 1 year goals, with the plan as much as
Yeah.
possible, and
Yeah,
then just
because
simplify.
plan is- Yeah,
Even
the plan is the official record, that's true.
yeah, that would help me.
Yeah, I could try to consolidate them and align them as much as possible, but I do know there are some things in the goals list that aren't specifically mentioned in the plan that you may still want to accomplish.
right.
Right.
Like training guide for commissioners, maybe. That's what you're.
Yep. We should have a retreat. All right, do we have other comments on that, or we want to just save those for when we reconvene in May?
I think we're good to move on, Robin.
Thanks.
I know you always want us to prompt you to and help you move.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you, Nettie.
Because it's a big weight, you know.
Okay, so at this point, since we're done with our official agenda items, before we move to unanticipated items, I just want to make sure that there isn't any public comment we're missing. So as I pull up our participants, looks like we have one attendee in the audience. If anybody from the audience would like to make a 3-minute comment at this point, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, we will move on to unanticipated items. Give a minute for a response here. All right, I'm going to say that we are good to go ahead. Unanticipated items. I was going to ask Walker what the status is on membership. I have 2 questions and I guess a comment. One question is that I know Hetty and Pat and I have all been on the commission for quite a while now, and I don't know if there are limits to our terms. But it seemed like at some point people seemed like people cycled out because they'd reached a certain number of years. That's my first question. My second question is I was present for a review of a candidate that I think it's been 2 meetings since that candidate was reviewed, and I gave a positive recommendation for them to join us, and I haven't heard anything on that. We're going to lose Antonia after May. And I think my comment is just generally that it's such a slow process to get people on the commission. And I think I would just express that as a frustration. That, you know, if we could get when we interview somebody, I'm not quite sure why it takes so long to move them forward. And in the past, you know, I've said this before, I had a friend who I convinced pretty aggressively to submit an application, and then she just never heard anything. She has a landscape architecture background, and she ended up by the time they got around to calling her in for interviews, I think she opted for a different assignment, and I was sad because I thought she would have been a good addition to our expertise, and I'm not sure what I mean, I know that everything in government moves slowly, and I understand that. But so that's my first unanticipated item. And I don't know, Walker, do you have any update? Are we anticipating a new member, or did they decline the position?
So I never heard anything back about the member, so I'm guessing they declined. And I also have Pat, you, Robin, and Madeline all have terms that expire at the end of June, and then you just choose whether you want to be reappointed or not. So you can continue to serve, but you do have to file the paperwork to get reappointed.
Okay, and there's no limit on how long you can serve on a commission?
As far as I know, you can keep getting reappointed.
Okay. All right, good to know.
So yeah, something the three of you need to think about. And yeah, I guess recruitment is probably important at this point.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and I would say, I would ask you to ask the town, if we interview somebody and there's no movement, it would be really helpful to let us know.
Get a
Because
follow-up. Yeah.
I was
think-
actually looking forward to that person joining.
I know, I think that
No.
all the commissions and interviews and everything are handled through one person. So I
Yep.
guess she just gets very busy, but
Okay.
I'll check in
Yeah,
back with
yeah.
her and just make sure that was the case and if she's
Okay.
seeing any other interest.
Okay. And then my other unanticipated item was just a question about since you sent out the demolitions and I haven't had a chance to look at the is it Main Street? No, I don't know. It's one of the Route 9 houses, right? There's a Amherst. We're familiar with the Dakin property because we actually did a site visit there. There's an interesting barn there. The house is sort of a weird hodgepodge of styles thrown together, but the barn was kind of, I mean, it's just, it's an interesting property hidden back there. But the one on Route 9, I drove by there today, but I forgot to look. But I did notice that a number of those houses were receiving new treatments, new windows. I know that doesn't new porches. I know that doesn't necessarily fall under or demolition delay bylaw, but both there and then around the corner from my old house in the corner of Mattoon and I guess that's Triangle, there's a house that's been under renovation for many, many years. And at a certain point, it had really interesting curved porch with interestingly cut. I wouldn't even call them spindles because I think they were cut more than they were turned. And that entire porch was removed and is gone now. And I did see, I think, a stop work order, maybe because they never filed a permit. But when I'm seeing this level of removal of basically the historical detail that makes these houses interesting, it's just kind of like making me feel like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm sorry, I'm banging my desk. It's like we have CPA money. We have a demolition delay bylaw, we have a commission. All I want to do is work with people to maintain the historic character of their buildings. And I just feel like, we don't necessarily, we really don't, well, almost never tear things down and put much bigger things up in place of them is sort of like I think the way that people think about preservation as being, this kind of success story from like the bulldozers coming through. But I just feel like I'm seeing a lot of loss. And I don't know, I just wanted to put that out there. And particularly with the house on Mattoon and Triangle, I wonder if, I'm just curious and I'm sorry that I don't know the demolition delay bylaw well enough to to ascertain whether the entire removal of a historic porch would have triggered, if they'd filed for a permit appropriately, would have triggered review, but if it doesn't,
25%, Robin, I
Yeah.
seem to. of-
yeah.
Oh, it's not, okay.
25% or more of the front, back, or side elevations, so I'm
Yeah.
not
So-
sure that a porch would end up being up to that point generally.
Boy, that's
It
a
has
bummer.
completely changed the look of that house in a very strategic and important part of Amherst, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and on the houses on Route 9 too, and I understand the need to switch over windows. I think that's really challenging from a property owner's perspective, but the porch changes are really making me feel like we're missing something critical. I mean, if you're gonna keep the historic building there and you're gonna remove all its historic character, like what is the point of not, building something larger in its place? I mean, I think that's, and I've certainly said privately before, and I'm perfectly happy saying publicly that, I know that we really struggle with housing in this town. And, I don't want to be in a position where we're keeping something being knocked down, but we're eliminating all its historical character. Like that's just crazy to me. Or it seems to contradict what, our mission is here. But I'm sorry, I haven't given you a chance to respond, Walker.
I'm not sure I have much of a response other than that I think outside local historic districts, there's not a lot the town can do about the smaller, less than 25.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking less of kind of, of demolition delay, but at least, reaching out to those property owners for CPA guidance, I mean, those are the things that we could, fund with CPA money if, you've got a historic porch that's, like that kind of proactive piece of it, to say like, we're here to help.
Well, you could
Um,
put out notices and advertise a public hearing and provide some information about the CPA and how it works to people who have historic buildings.
Yeah, I was just wondering if,
Application.
when you apply for a permit, you could also get, a flyer on,
Yeah,
flag, something like that. I don't
yeah.
know.
Some of those changes probably don't require a building permit and some do, but yeah, it might be that you could flag houses that are historic and have them automatically receive information about CPA program.
Yeah.
Something I could look into.
Okay.
That would be really cool.
Mm.
Because I seem to remember when we looked at that lovely house, Greek Revival house on Leverett Road, that I think if the owner there had had more information about, exactly what kinds of protections not there was on the house, it would have been helpful for him.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think real estate agents are not, I mean, there's nothing that requires homeowners to be alerted of the fact that their house might fall under demolition delay. Like that was his main kind of gripe, was that he didn't know. And I don't think a realtor is inclined to offer information that will suggest that maybe their house might be problematically updated. That's really kind of the problem there. Madeline, Pat, any thoughts before we move on?
No, that's interesting to think that maybe the presence of the demolition delay prevents, it steers real estate developers to do certain things with buildings that maybe are unintended by us, to rip off the front porch rather than like rebuild the entire building. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think so because it doesn't seem like it's.
No, I think I'm just surprised that somehow porches, which are such an incredibly significant part of historic character, if they're if they're not being flagged because they don't hit that 25% mark. I mean, I don't know what it would take to adapt the demolition delay just to reflect that, but it just stands out to me. I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess 'cause that's kind of, Madeline, I'm curious, like, does it seem like that's a substantial omission?
Are you seeing it? I mean, I don't know if it's that widespread, the kind of the porch removal, but
But I
maybe
just
you
mean
do. Yeah.
as a substantial part of a building's character. I mean, it's pretty common that, porches need to get updated. I mean, when I was working up in Greenfield, we had, the words are escaping me, a housing program for lower middle income homeowners, and they would just scrap a historic porch because it had lead paint on it, and just it would just become like a modern spindled
Right, right.
um
I mean, in some neighborhoods, the porch is just such a uniting kind of character defining
Yeah.
trait of all the buildings. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's important. I don't know how to, yeah. Seems like you want more just incentives and
right.
carrots for that one
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than try and chase all
Or
the
both,
porch demos.
True, yeah, yeah.
But it seems that because of the 25% facade, part of our preservation, that things fall through the cracks like a porch.
Yeah, I mean I think that's kind of my question, is that you can't, one of the advantages of having CPA and a demolition delay is that if somebody has to come for a demolition permit, you can offer that's your moment to offer the CPA carrot, right?
Right, but if they
Um,
don't have to come before the commission,
Exactly, then,
Yeah.
it just isn't yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any other unanticipated items that they wanted to bring up?
Nope.
Oh, I have one more. Sorry. Was anyone raising their hand? Okay. Walker, can you just pull together a status report on the outstanding CPA awards at the next meeting? That'd be great.
Mhm. Yep.
Good to know what's going on with those.
Yeah, and the council was supposed to vote on this year's CPA today. I don't know if they did or not.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, we can start pursuing those projects too.
what's that?
So if they did, we can start getting those projects going.
Yeah, I'm sure, I know specifically the North Church, would love to hear.
Yeah, there's definitely a few that.
Yep.
that are
Okay.
older.
Okay, so I just make our next meeting would be, if we do a Monday, it would be either the 5th or the 12th of May. And I know, Walker, you had the demolition delays. Can you remind me?
Yes, those are gonna be on the 5th.
Okay, on the 5th. Okay, so our
Mm.
next meeting will be on the 5th, 7
Yep.
o'clock. Since we're at quorum here, is everybody able to attend? Presumably, Antonio will be there, but
Yeah, maybe should be done with your thesis by then.
is everybody able to attend?
Yep.
Okay, Madeline says yes. Pat, you clear on the?
I'm thinking I should be able to attend. I've
Okay,
got lots of things in flux right now, but I
okay,
should be able to.
okay. All right.
Thank you.
So if there's no further comment, I will
Adjourn.
adjourn the meeting at 8:03 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay warm.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.